Hello everyone, how are you today? Today we are going to start another question regarding MRCS, which is related to organ transplantation, and we will discuss all the question of MRCS, recalls, Fawzia sheets, and another question if possible. So stay tuned with us by subscribing our channel for more videos which will help you to prepare yourself for MRCS exam very easy. So now let's start the question here. Here we can see a 28 years old female undergoes a renal transplant for focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. Within hours of operation, the patient become unwell with fissure consistent with severe systemic inflammatory response syndrome SIRS. The patient is immediately taken back to the theater and the transplanted kidney is removed. What type of immunoglobulins are responsible for the graft rejection? So here we can see a 28 years old female undergoing renal transplant for focal segmental glomerulosclerosis within hours. This time is very important. Within hours of the operation, the patient becomes unwell with fissure consistent with severe systemic inflammatory response syndrome. The patient is immediately taken back to the theater and the transplanted kidney is removed. What type of immunoglobulin are responsible for the graft rejection? So here this time is important. Development of SIRS and taken back to the theater and transplanted kidney is removed. Here what type of immunoglobulin are responsible for the transplantation failure? Here we can see the options are IgE, IgM, IgG, IgD and IgA. Here the different immunoglobulin and among them what is the culprit for this transplantation failure. So let's see it. Here we can see different type of immunoglobulin. We know that the immunoglobulin, there are 5 types. Here they are IgG, IgE, IgD, IgM and IgA. Here we can see the IgM. They here connected 5 parts by a chain, that is joining chain or J chain. On the other hand, we can see IgA, it is joined the 2 structure by a joining chain J chain. So these immunoglobulin are very important for our body, and in case of transplanted kidney, one of the immunoglobulin is responsible for the systemic inflammatory response syndrome and is responsible for failure of the transplantation. Here we can see IgG. IgG, it usually present for the long term and it present in case of chronic case. On the other hand, we can see IgM. IgM, it usually present very early time and it is responsible for acute inflammation or acute reaction for following any injury. So here in this case we can see the transplantation, after just transplantation the kidney, within few hours the transplantation is failed. So here we can see the another picture. Here we can see the IgG and IgM, which is very important for this case. Is it IgG or IgM? We can see another IgE. IgE is responsible for anaphylactic reaction or allergic reaction. On the other hand, IgA is usually present in the secretory form, in the secretion in the different part of the lumen, and IgD, which usually causes other function. So IgE, it and IgA, they are not responsible for this transplantation failure. So we have to find out from IgG and IgM. Here we can see IgG and IgM. IgM, it usually present very early. It present very early and persists a certain period of the time, and then it ends. On the other hand, we can see here is IgG. IgG, it starts its function or it starts its growing typically a longer time, then it starts to upwards and up to a optimum area, then it continues and present for a long period of the time. So IgG, it present a long period of time. IgG, it starts its function usually late. On the other hand, IgM, it starts its function immediately after any inflammation, but it persists a certain period of the time and that ends. But IgG, it starts its function or it starts growing after a time, but when it presents, it persists a long time. So here, so in this case, here we can see hyperacute graft rejection is due to preform existent antibodies to the ABO and HLA antigen and is therefore IgA mediated. So here this is one of the confusional point. Usually we can see in case of hyperacute rejection, its time is very low. It is immediately during operation or after few hours. But here should be IgM, but where it is IgG. In this case, the reaction occurs between patient antibody and donor's antigen. Patient antibody and donor antigen. In case of patient against IABO or against HLA, there is a antibody, and this antibody, it present long time before. Usually it present long time in his or her blood. So as it is present longer time from before, it is IgG, and the antibody is not produced immediately. It was preformed antibody against ABO and HLA antigen. In the recipient blood there were antibody, but that antibody produced longer time from the operation. So as they present longer time from the operation, they are IgG mediated, and if the antibody produced within the time of the operation or after the time of the operation, then it would be IgM. But this antibody, it produced longer time before, and they were present in the recipient blood for the longer time, and they start function just during the operation. So our final answer is IgG. So there is no confusion. The confusion here is the within the hours. With this option, it is a tricky point, and it denotes you that it is acute inflammation and it is caused by IgM, but not that, because this antibody were present for a longer period of time. I think it is clear to you now. Thank you all.